Hello, everyone. Welcome to Unpontificated. My name is Voyo, and today I just want to talk about this interview that I saw on CTV Morning show. They titled it "Carney Cuts Could Lead to 60,000 Loss of Federal Jobs," or to the loss of 60,000 federal jobs. I found this very interesting because, yes, Mark Carney has asked his ministers, or the minister, I think it's, I forget his name, has asked ministers to look for cuts in all their departments. And I believe one of the reasons why Pierre Poilievre lost his seat in in Carleton there, which is in the Ottawa region, was because he also talked about cuts to the federal government. And of course, all those are federal workers. They're in Ottawa. And why should we have a prime minister who's going to cut our jobs? Well, well, well. You have a prime minister who's going to cut your jobs, and now you got rid of Pierre Poilievre. Okay, so what you feared has come upon you. So let's take a look at this interview. I think it's a pretty interesting interview. Here we go.
Prime Minister Mark Carney's planned public service cuts are raising new questions over how jobs and services are going to be affected across the country.
And the essence of this is to spend less and invest more. That means reining in government spending so that Canada can invest more as a country.
So that's the Prime Minister back in February of this year. Earlier this month, Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne directed cabinet ministers to identify 15% in savings in their individual departments by the end of the summer. That would total $25 billion overall. So a new report from the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives estimates that by 2028, up to 67,000 public service jobs could be lost over the next 3 years. So for more this morning, we're joined from Ottawa by the report's author, David McDonald, senior economist at the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives. Good morning.
Good morning.
Your report outlines which department could bear the brunt of these cuts. We're going to outline those for people now. By 2028, you say more than 14,000 job losses at the CRA, Canada Revenue Agency, more than 4,000 at Employment and Social Development, and 4,000 at Citizenship and Immigration. Why would those agencies be most affected?
Just look at those numbers. 14,000 people could be gone, or those jobs could be affected at the CRA. How many people do they have at the CRA? Actually, I should have looked that up. I'm going to look that up later on. But 14,000 could be gone by 2028, so that's in 3 years. But we have 100,000 people working there serving, well, there's 40 million Canadians, but how many of them work if you take away all the kids? Wow, that's a lot of people. Anyway, I think the government is just bloated. We probably won't miss a thing if those people gone. We wouldn't miss a thing in terms of service delivery.
They're service departments, so they provide a lot of services to Canadians, and therefore they have a lot of staff to provide those services. And so when you ask departments, you got to take a 15% cut, it ends up being a lot more staff in places where you've got a lot of services that are being delivered. These are very frontline departments. So CRA is, this is the department that does your taxes, does business taxes. You got a problem with your taxes, or if you have problems with transfer payment of some kind, like the Canada Child Benefit, that's who you talk to. ESDC, which is second on the list, they manage the Canada Pension Plan as well as employment insurance. So if you have an employment insurance claim that didn't go well, or you're not getting your pension plan payments, that's who you would call. And CIC deals with passports as well as immigration issues. And so...
sorry, guys, I just looked it up. AI, Google tells me that CRA has approximately 59,000 employees. 59,000. So if you lose 14,000, then we'll have, what, 45,000? 46,000. Whoa. What's the problem? I don't see a problem, man. No problem, man.
So if you need a passport in a rush, you're going to be at a CIC office looking to get that done quickly. These are all departments, because they're so service heavy, that Canadians will notice when the service levels decrease, because you're cutting 15% of the staff.
And David, are these full-time positions, part-time positions? Are they mostly administrative, or are they actually full-time positions that deal directly with customer service?
Well, I'm calculating this on a full-time equivalent basis. What would likely happen in terms of the cuts is there'd likely be buyout packages for older workers to leave. And then there are what's called term contract positions, where you're not there on a full-time, long-term basis. Folks often string those together to make a full-time job, but those would likely be the first to go. And then it would start to eat into the indeterminate positions. These are sort of full-time, ongoing positions, and so there'll likely be a couple steps to this process. I mean, at this point, we don't have the details of exactly which program lines would be cut. The departments have been asked to produce plans. They're presently working hard to produce those plans. They're going to bring those back at the end of the summer. Yeah. We'll have a budget probably in September or October, and we may have more details at that point as to which departments are going to see the full 15%. There are some departments that are protected, like Defense and the RCMP, but we'll really have to see probably in the fall which departments are hit.
We're going to get to how AI works into this in a moment, but first,
Yeah, one thing, Carney is working kind of with house money right now, because we don't have a budget. So we don't know where they're going to cut. We don't know how they're going to spend the money. We don't know how they're going to invest the money. We don't know. So right now he's just talking, saying, let's do this, do this, do that. And without a budget, what kind of, he's kind of doing whatever he wants. So yeah, I'll be looking forward to the budget whenever that comes. Probably going to be October, and see what happens. But right now, I wonder what people in Ottawa, they're probably crying because there's a chance, if this goes through, like we don't know now, but if this goes through, if Carney says he's going to do what he says he's going to do, then jobs will be cut. And the other thing that he needs to do, if we're talking about saving money, like decreasing government spending so that Canada can invest, then don't give CBC any more money. Like, they don't need more money. They don't need any more of our money. There's no need to give them more money. And then that's another way of reducing government spending.
Your report breaks down where in Canada these job losses occur. No surprise, you're predicting 45% of job cuts would be in Ottawa and Gatineau. That's really the hub of where a lot of these government agencies reside, so they have more employees there. But how will public service workers in other parts of the country be affected?
Yeah, so if we pull out just Ottawa and Gatineau, as you say, it's about 24,000 positions there. There'd be an additional 8,000 or so positions across the rest of Ontario outside of Ottawa. In Quebec, there'd be another 6,000 positions in addition to any job losses in Gatineau, with the rest of the job losses kind of being distributed throughout the country. We will have to see in the fall budget or at some other update point which departments are targeted at this point. This calculation is based on 15% of staff as it exists, in their projections of the 25-26 projections. And so once we get more details about program lines and specific departments, then it'll be easier to figure out what the service impacts would be, but also where the job losses would be.
Right. This comes at the same time as we know the Liberal platform pledges to increase the use of AI in public service, under the guise of it is a better use of your tax dollars. It creates what they would call efficiencies. And that raises some questions, of course, about the looming cuts. What are your concerns when you look at the increased use of AI?
Yeah, AI can be useful in some cases. It's not useful when it's doing critical things like telling you whether you should take a particular deduction on your taxes or not. It's happy to make things up. And so what we don't want is a situation where instead of a person, when you call the CRA hotline, somebody picks up right away, but it's an AI bot. And they'll tell you whatever you want to hear. And that becomes a real problem. We have certainly in the past had the promise of technology replacing people as, a cash-saving measure with the Phoenix debacle, where they replaced a whole bunch of HR folks that dealt with all the ins and outs of people's pay, laid them all off, brought in a software system to do it instead, and it was a disaster. The federal government has since spent about $5 billion just cleaning that mess up and ensuring people are just being paid on time, sort of the bare minimum. So that's definitely not what we want to hear. I don't think that the promise of AI is going to replace 15% of staff or do it very effectively. But unfortunately, we may well find out over the coming years.
David McDonald, senior economist at the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
So there you have it. Pretty good interview, pretty enlightening. So, people of Ottawa, there's a good chance that you may lose 60,000 of your jobs, much in the Ottawa area, but of course, it's a federal government, so there's federal jobs everywhere. This is kind of, it's interesting how I've said this before, that Mark Carney, if all this does happen, is kind of running the country like a conservative. In some cases, talking about cuts to the federal government is a conservative point. You know, the government is bloated. We want less government. That's what conservatives want, less government. So, you know, it becomes tough for Pierre, or it becomes tough for conservatives, tough to speak against policies that are right in line with conservative policies. So if you're going to talk about more military spending, sure. We're going to talk about government cuts, sure. We're going to talk about interprovincial trade, sure. So, yeah, we may see, shockingly, the conservatives vote with the Liberals, as they did with C5. They voted with the Liberals. Interesting stuff. All right, what do you guys think? I just wanted to highlight that video because one thing I think, like I said before, Pierre Poilievre may have lost his seat because he talked about cuts. Now, Mark Carney talked about cuts too back in, as we saw in the clip, back in February, but maybe people forgot, as they're bound to do. You know, CBC is not going to highlight that during the campaign. But yeah, it's interesting. We'll see what happens. Looking forward to the budget and see what if the budget talks about that in September, October, whenever that happens. We better have a budget. All right, I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.